So today I'm going to talk about a thought I've been having quite a lot about how I became inspired to make this channel and what led me to start having these ideas that I feel the urge to share. So this will kind of be a history of the development of my thought process and outlook toward life, and kind of my approach to pursuing my happiness and just greater understanding of this world, which sounds deeper than I mean it to. So I'll start really at the beginning. So when I was a kid, I have some memories. I have a few memories of both of my parents, but mainly my mom, telling me at different times in my early childhood that I was special. Now, a lot of parents tell their kids this, and it's with good intentions, but I think it really actually has a negative effect on children, or it can, and I think in my case it did, because the reality of it is I'm not special. In a sense, we are all special, but really, most of us are pretty ordinary people, for the most part, I think, and that's okay. We're all very similar in that way. We share pretty intrinsic human experiences, and there are definitely exceptional people, but to tell your kid at a young age that they're special is, I think, a little misguided, and I think what would make more sense is to not tell them that they're special, but to, really focus on the work that they do, and the actions are what, the actions we make are what, make us special. So by telling me that I was special, and I remember being skeptical. I remember thinking, even as like a 4 or 5-year-old kid, like, really, like I'm special. How lucky! This is great. I'm special. Amazing. But when you enter when you leave your home as a kid and you enter the social circles of early elementary school or wherever, I think you realize pretty quickly that you're not special, or at least you're not exceptional in every area. You might be good at some things, but you might not be the fastest or the tallest or the oldest, and these are things that matter to kids. And I think for myself, those things were kind of on a subconscious level sort of threatening to me. And I remember, all throughout school, an example I use is like, and I'm sure people can relate to this, is you'd be in class, everyone's working on a test or some type of assignment, and you're working, and then one kid like slaps his hand down on the table and raises his hand, done, and you're like, damn, I'm only like halfway through, how's he already done? Like, I must not be special, I guess. Like, I'm taking my time and I'm having a hard time. So, what does that mean about me? What does that reflect on me as a person? And the answer, I think, really is nothing. As a person, it shouldn't be any method of judging someone. I mean, not that I'm about everyone getting like the participation trophy either, but yeah, I mean, we all cultivate skills at different speeds, and some people are naturally better at things, but I think with hard work, anyone can be exceptional at almost anything. So anyway, I felt in those moments when that kid hypothetically would yell done, I would kind of build an aversion to these things that I didn't feel exceptional at. And how that manifested is I would quit a lot of things as a kid. If I didn't feel like I was very good at something, it would kind of serve as a testament to the fact that I wasn't special. And I would, my experience as a child was just that I was losing interest in it after a while. But really, there was this subconscious defense mechanism happening that was, it was like my ego kind of shielding itself from this thing that made me feel, average or ordinary or untalented. So, now, after like years of this becoming a theme in my life, of kind of hiding from difficult things or things I wasn't good at, I didn't really build that strength to deal with hard situations. So it would reflect that type of outlook would reflect itself in like my schoolwork. So with math, like I just developed this idea that I was bad at math, so I would just not do math. Essays, I had this like fear of essays. I just thought I couldn't do it. I just thought I was that bad at it. I couldn't write an essay. But really, I'd never put any effort into it. It was just such a area of like helplessness in my mind that I just can't do it. So I rarely did my work in school, and that of course, I'd bring home a report card and it'd be terrible. It would be just awful. And like I didn't think I was an idiot. Like I thought I didn't think I was like dumb or anything, but when I looked at the numbers or the grades, and like my friends or my parents would look at them, I would feel dumb. Even though I knew that I just never did the work, but rather than seeing it as a lack of discipline or motivation, it was viewed to me as a lack of capability and a lack of intelligence. So that was very troubling as well, because if the person truly doesn't believe they can do something, no part of them, like, to put any effort into it would just naturally to them seem misguided or just silly. And another way this reflected was in my thinking. If there was like an idea or a thought, and like I dealt with some kind of difficult things in my childhood, nothing major. All in all, it was very much a great childhood. But just, my parents got divorced, things like that. But just, it doesn't really apply to my life today. But as a kid, I just remember like having certain thoughts that in the same way I would, push away things that were difficult, like physically, or mentally, these thoughts on the same way, like if it was uncomfortable to think about, I would just push it away. And I became pretty good at that. And I had lots of ways to distract myself. So, whether that was, and I really didn't play a lot of video games as a kid, but like I had a phone, so I could distract myself on that. Or we had the Wii, and I would play that a lot. And another thing was junk food, unfortunately. That was like one thing I could rely on to provide some momentary pleasure when I was dealing kind of with the anxieties of my mind, and then also the anxieties of like school and just not feeling like I was good at things. And so, yeah, essentially what was happening is over time, all of these things piled up, and I just became this sort of anxious, shy, hopeless person, really. I just felt so, I just didn't think I was capable of much. And that started to fade, like, in high school. I started wrestling, and I had a girlfriend, and I had a decent friend group by my senior year. And wrestling was probably the first thing I ever did that I didn't quit, and I became somewhat adequate at that. I wouldn't say really skilled, but I enjoyed it, and I felt accomplished just by getting through those practices and matches, even the ones I lost. But anyway, another great achievement that helped this was I traveled, and I left home for 6 months the year right after I graduated high school. For 4 months I went to New Zealand, and then for 2 months I went to Thailand with my best friend, I'd say. And so these things helped a lot, and they gave me some more confidence, especially while you're traveling. You're kind of removed from your daily regular life, and you're almost living a whole new life. But when I returned home, and I started school again the next year, my first year of college, I kind of slipped right back into those old ways that I had never really overcome a lot of those things, especially like my outlook on school and my intelligence. I still had a very limiting outlook on. So school happened, and I lost. At first I did okay, but again, then I just lost that motivation, and I had no discipline, because I never had any to begin with. I had, within reason. I wasn't completely incapable, but I just had a lot of negative things holding me back in my mind. So eventually, this thought occurred in my mind. And it happened, it was actually the year after college. I had met a girl, my girlfriend now, who we're still dating and going on 3 years here. Going very great. So I moved in with her the year after college. We had both left school, and we're, just, I guess had decided we weren't ready for college. I sure wasn't. So we got an apartment, and I worked this construction job, and that was okay. I wanted to quit that too, because I wasn't good at it. But this was, financially, I really had to do it. So that was the incentive to not quit, and that was good. But even still, on my days off, I was in a new place, didn't really have any social integration, and my behavior just became incredibly unhealthy over the few months that I was there, to the point where on my days off where I didn't have work, I really wouldn't do anything at all. I would tell myself the night before, or even early in that morning, I'd make a list of all the things that I was going to do. It would be things like exercising, eating healthy, limiting my, phone usage, or just methods of distracting myself. I was also smoking a lot back then, not tobacco. And I began to defeat myself every day. I defeated myself. I wanted to do something, and my mind would just trick itself into saying, "Oh, I'll just do it later," or "We'll just do it tomorrow, have a day off." And eventually I spent like weeks doing this, where every day I'd tell myself to turn it around, and I wouldn't. And this became very, very frustrating, and I was essentially stuck as a person. I felt completely stuck. And this question arose that once I asked myself this question, I think everything began to change. And it was just this, I guess it was a few questions, sorry. So, one being, are there things I can do in my everyday life that will improve my well-being and will improve my happiness? And there was plenty of things. I was thinking of those things every day. I was very, very familiar with all the ways I could be helping myself, but I just didn't have the ability to follow through with it, the discipline, and the motivation or inspiration. And the next question after that is, why don't you do those things? and I was stumped. I was like, yeah, what is it that makes me not able to follow through? And if, again, you hone in on this discipline issue, but you're like, that really doesn't help. Um, you're just, because it almost just makes you feel worse. It's like, on top of everything now, I also don't have any discipline. So like, it's like another almost excuse for why you're you know not living up to your potential in your mind. And then the third question is, if I want to do these things and I'm still not, am I in control? Am I in control? No. No, at that point you're not. You've lost control. You're just a slave to these desires. And you don't have any rules for yourself. So you just live chasing around whatever, desire is most prominent in your mind. And you'll eat, some sugary junk food, make yourself feel good, and then you're like, well, let me just light up as well, or let me just watch this video or a movie, and let me just get into bed and just relax. And everything's about that instant pleasure to distract yourself. You need something constantly there to distract yourself from the fact that you're really not living your life. And so, how did I get out of this situation? I left the apartment as a matter of just necessity. I wasn't, just like I was describing, I wasn't living my life. I wasn't able to get out of this funk that I was in. So I moved home. I got a job from, it was at a restaurant, and somehow I did very well there. Like I just showed up on time and just kind of was pleasant as far as I know. That's really all I did. But I eventually became a manager at this restaurant, and that was a huge confidence boost and ego boost, unfortunately. But it's what it is. And I just eventually came out of it and just gained confidence and just saw it for what it was. And I learned, just through thinking and meditating and journaling and things. I shouldn't even say meditating, because that's much more recent. But I was doing like journaling and just thinking and trying to really focus on like improving my happiness and health and things. And it wasn't easy by any means, but I started to build some momentum. But even still, there were plenty of things I was using to distract myself, and things that were holding me back in my life, both mentally and just in the everyday life, different temptations and things. So I just knew, and it's this idea. It's like, what more could I be doing, and why am I not doing it? And that's this idea that just really sunk in. It was like, I could be doing more. Like, how much better can this get? Like, what happens if I improve my sleep, and then my diet, and like all of these things? There's so many areas where we can just elevate ourselves and be happier and treat ourselves better. And that was a huge thing as well. What I eventually learned was I really didn't like myself. I didn't like myself enough to do things that were within my best self-interest. In a sense, it almost at times felt like I hated myself. Whereas now, I have a deep love for myself, and it sounds very like, I don't even want to say narcissistic or egotistical, because it's just so great to care for yourself. I don't want to even attach words like that to it, but I know how it sounds. but you really do have to, yes, fall in love with yourself, and these decisions that we have to ask, like, should I do this? Like, should I eat this salad versus this burger, or should I exercise rather than lay around, or read versus television, like things like that. It's like you know that all of those things are going to benefit you, and once you see that connection and see that you're really honoring yourself, it becomes so much easier. But anyway, recently so I had kind of developed some of these understandings about myself, and or at least like made the loose connections and things. But I still wanted more. Like I said, I knew there was more I could be doing. And I don't know exactly what it was. I just was spending time on YouTube. Someone if you haven't heard of him, he passed away, I think in 2019 it was. His name was Richard Alpert. He went by Ram Dass, and he was kind of a spiritual leader in a way, and he was very inspiring. I was watching a lot of his videos, and when you watch those on YouTube, they recommend you all sorts of these spiritual videos. And I found this one lesson on how to meditate. And I had been meditating on and off since high school. My mom's a yoga teacher, and she's into that stuff, and it just kind of entered my life naturally that way. And I, very occasionally I would do it with periods of like really focused meditation, and then you'd fall out of it and things. So when I saw this video, I thought, why not? I'll just click on it. For all I know, I was just like lying on the couch, like half asleep, like when I turned it on, probably drooling and just looking like a vegetable. But I click it, and it really, it changed my life that night. Because the video starts with this idea, it's the principle of the meditation. It's, as you think, so you become. Now, this really applies to the story I've just told, of a outlook on life shaping your entire view of yourself. Mine being that I was, I guess that I wasn't special, but wanted people to think that I was my thinking, and how detrimental that was to my success as a person. And then the teacher expands by saying, like, if you think negative, you'll become negative. If you think positive, you'll become positive. If you think limited, you'll be limited. But if you think limitless, you'll be limitless. Now that's a very abstract idea, limitless, infinity. That's very abstract. But I think this story kind of talks about or points to how we have these little limitations, and if we can put a spotlight on those and really look at them, I think are provided a lot of relief from them. At least I was. And there's lots of things this is just an example. There's lots of things that have limited me, and I've become more familiar with, and still are limited by, but I'm more familiar with, and therefore I can work on those things a little bit. So now the meditation, the video was very inspiring, and I started a whole course with this teacher, and it's called Meditation Steps, and I think, or meditationsteps.org or something you could look up if you're interested. And so I began doing this, meditating, all with the idea that, again, am I in control? I want to establish more and more control over my thinking, and I want to prevent myself from these temptations of, again, just these, I don't know how to categorize them all in one word, but it's like instant gratification it's things that we don't have to work for that just give us this immediate pleasure that I find to be so unhealthy. Like reading requires a great deal of concentration, but it has a great reward. Exercise, effort, reward, meditation, same deal. Eating healthy, same thing. It's like, you could be having a much more entertaining meal, flavor-wise, but the benefit and how good you're going to feel if you eat that healthy food instead. So, one thing that I want to just close things off by is just ask yourself, what is my outlook on this world, and how is it either helping or hindering me? And there's just so much room to grow when you're thinking this way, because a lot of our opinions or just points of view are very specific to the way we were raised, or experiences we've had, or trauma we have, or different things that we're not really aware of, or sometimes not willing to look at. So yeah, just spend some time asking yourself these questions, and again, I'm speaking as if there's lots of you listening. So if my 3 subscribers have anything to say about this, leave some comments below, and I'd love to chat, or email me at insatiablecole@gmail.com. Thank you.